Moving on to trade, markets, and drivers. Now, the services offered by the tech industry or the assurance industry stem from a need to establish trust between the buyer and the seller. The seller's claim for a given value of a product or a service rests on a promise. It is this promise that needs assurance and needs a trusted entity or a body or a person who is technically fit to assess and almost put a hand on the shoulder of the buyer or the financer and say, it's okay, it is worth this much. Now, when I say this much, it is good to imagine why it is valuable. Let's look here at only the commodities data, which was compiled a couple of years ago using visualization created by someone called Winifred Amase for Visual Capitalist Creator Program Challenge on international trade. Now, if you look at this graph and scan through some of the numbers in trillion and billion US dollars, it is easy to realize the need for assuring these numbers, as it is the services which assure these promises have a very high value. Mind you, these are old numbers from the year 2020. To expand a little further on the so-called monochromatic buyer-seller view of the tech industry, let's look at some other entities from a conformity assessment body's point of view. You have a creator or a producer of a product or a service. You have a trader, you have the seller, you have the buyer, you have the reseller. Now, usually this is the set that forms the customer group of conformity assessment bodies. Both the buyer and the seller could be using the services of a conformity assessment body directly. But what about the second set that I am about to show you on the screen? You have financial institutions, you have government regulators, who then are linked very closely with the conformity assessment bodies too, which is testing bodies, inspection bodies. Now, I want you to take a few seconds and actually imagine these scenarios. Imagine the human beings involved in any given industry. Pick one industry in your mind, pick a product around you, pick a service around you, and just imagine these people who are like you and me, who are undertaking the roles and work every day in various countries and creating the function of a producer, a reseller, a buyer. Now, do you think all of them will have the same drive and the same integrity every day, day on day, all the time to do what they are doing? After all, they are human beings and there are errors. Now, at the end of it, at the end of all of these transactions is a promise. The promise to deliver a product which has value. We gave an example of some of the values which you would have seen in the slide earlier. These are delivered on the back of assurance from the tech industry. From the commodity example earlier, you have seen some of the stakeholders. Now it is an interesting exercise to let your mind imagine what could be the needs, wants, and aspirations of each of these stakeholders. You can port this to any industry you operate in. Give your mind some time to think. Who is linked with whom? Who would like to strengthen their relationships with whom, and why. What would these relationships lead to? There are some relationships that you can see on the screen. Now, this is going to be part of an assignment data, and you would need to list some of these potential relationships that exists in your industry or where your tech industry is servicing or any other industry. I want you to think in your mind and build your R&D lab in your mind. Pick up an industry you are very familiar with and list the names of companies, one or more, that you can relate with, you know of, against the creator, a trader, a seller, a buyer, a reseller, a financial institution, a testing lab, a certification body, an inspection body, a government regulator. Talk about, give specific names of actual businesses. I mean, in case there is a impartiality or there is some reason why you cannot, but this is public information. Think about this and imagine the transaction that is happening in a given industry. Where is it that there is a lack of assurance? Where is the possibility of an assurance business stream that could come in? Write this down and I will read through. See you on the other side.